Good morning, everybody. My name is Vannoy, and I'm a member of Al-Anon. Hi, y'all. I came into this magnificent fellowship of ours February the 7th of 1969 in Lubbock, Texas. I now and have lived in L.A. for next month will be 17 years. I followed a hymn out here. My home group is the Stepped Up group. We meet on Monday nights and Thursday nights in Westchester, which is in Los Angeles, by LAX. If you're ever there, please come see us. We'd love to have you. I have a committed open AA meeting that I've gone to, an open AA meeting ever since I've gotten here, and I can't tell you which helped me the most. It was those AA meetings, the Al-Anon meetings. I don't know who helped me most in the beginning, my sponsor or her husband. My sponsor is Pat Clater. She lives in Austin, Texas. She's my one and only sponsor. I've had her all these years. She's still active. She's 82 and really just almost crippled. She still goes to her meetings. Still takes my calls. I call her every Tuesday morning at 7:30. I'd like to thank a lot of people. This has just been a great weekend. I'd like to thank Herb for calling me and being so gracious to invite me personally as an Al-Anon. I'd like to thank this committee for allowing an Al-Anon to share your podium. I think it's very nice. You just really, really need to be nice to us because we're the only ones who like y'all. As Bill said last night. This hotel just blows me away. It's just incredible in that gorgeous basket. And thank you, Ron. Ron has called me just over and over and over. He's made me feel so welcome and like you actually knew I was coming, and I appreciate it. And the speakers and the panels have been good, and I'm telling you, Shelley really runs a scam around here. Look at her. She's got a cane. Look at this poor old thing just wobbling up here. You know, I'm 65. I'm overweight. I have bad knees, bad back, bad lungs. I just barely can walk and move. And here she is. We both wobbled in here last night and that music started. She just threw down that cane and said, "Come on." She shut the dance down last night. We tried. There was like 5 or 6 guys sitting over there by the door. They weren't participating, and she and I wobbled over there and gave them a lap dance. They almost fainted. No. And I've never been ever to a conference, and I've been to a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them. That you had to bribe people to come to the Al-Anon speaker. And Michelle, it worked. I mean, there's a lot of people here this morning. I'm impressed. I hope my name gets pulled out of the basket. I've never been to a conference that included so many different fellowships. And I've had some really ahas this weekend. And I loved how everybody talked about what their particular addiction was. My addiction is very simple. It's y'all. I am totally addicted to alcoholics. I love them. I've had 3 major ones and a bunch of minor ones in between. The last one died on me. And I don't know. I'm too old, I think, to try to break in another one. It's just... y'all are cute, but... I'm just too old. My folks, my dad was a part Indian from Oklahoma. My mother came from a divorced family in Lubbock County, Lubbock, Texas. And Lubbock was a really small little town. My mama back in that particular era, there was no divorces. People didn't divorce. They just went to their grave hating each other. They just never, they just didn't divorce back then. So it was really looked down upon. And my grandma was a divorced woman and a Baptist, Southern Baptist. And I discovered in my adult years that she loved alcoholics. And she had several of those little dudes. And that my mother was raised by an alcoholic. And to learn really late in life that she was an untreated Al-Anon. And she liked a lot of pills that gave her some peace and ease and comfort. 3 brothers. My oldest brother broke his neck in a swimming accident and was left paralyzed, and that broke my father. Just bankrupt him. There was no insurance at all. And I had to stay with some friends and relatives a lot because we were in Oklahoma when that happened, and we were living in Texas. And so my folks were there for months, it seemed like. I was this little kid, just months and months and months. And so I was kind of left with different people. And there's one thing that I always mention about that, because it's decisions that I made about myself when I was a kid that I bring into my adult life. And my adult person is looking down at the little 6-year-old and asking, what do I do about this? It's pretty stupid, but that's the way I was. I was with this couple, and I remember it distinctly today, is just like it was yesterday. And they're sweet people, and they had 3 kids. And it was Saturday night, and you took a bath on Saturday night, whether you needed it or not. This is going to make me sound really old, but I'm not really that old. And they lived out on a farm. And they didn't have an indoor bathroom. And you actually had to go to the outhouse. And then they got a I think they call it number 7 wash tub. I don't know if y'all know what that is, but it's big tin wash tub. Some people know it. And she would heat water on the stove and put it in the tub, and then in the kitchen, and then she'd call the kids in one at a time and would take a bath in that. So she bathed her children first. And then she called me in there, and she said, get in. Well, I looked at that tub, and the water was gray, and there was some white stuff floating on the top. And I said, I really don't want to. And she said, I said, really, please, I'm back it off. And then she gave me the look and said, get in. And so I stepped into that cold, nasty water. She reached down the bottom and picked up a wash rag and started washing my face. And I remember thinking, oh, well, I'm not her kid. I'm the last one. I don't belong here. And so this is what happens. And I took that with me until I had inventories in Al-Anon many years later. My house was full of just tension all the time. When they did bring my brother home, they set him up a hospital bed of sorts. There was, wasn't anything that we have today. They have striker frames today, and they didn't have that. They didn't have something to roll up the head and roll up the back and the feet. None of that. It was just a bed with a bar, and it was really gross. And his skin, of course, started rotting. He had decubitus. And it was summer, and we didn't have, you just had a fan in the window. That was it. And I remember the smells of my house. It was really bad. That rotting flesh and the stale urine smells and the sweat. And my daddy sat in there all the time and smoked, or my mama smoked, and they'd fight. And it was uncomfortable. I never had anybody in my home, ever. Nobody. And I stayed out on the streets. Somebody, I don't remember who it was saying that they were out on the streets at 8 years old and playing in the creek and just, being a kid, experimenting the trees and the bushes and all that. And the comfort they had from that. And I was in the streets just kind of hiding and finding the big girls, the 11-year-olds, and I'd learn stuff from them. And they'd talk about boys, and I started learning about that. And when I got about 16, I went with some of the older girls to place called the Cotton Club. And when I walked in, instantly I knew I'm at home. This is where I belong. Because it smelled like rotting flesh, old pee, dried sweat, skin, urine, smoke. It's like, And there was one of these, and half of the mirrors were gone, the broken and busted. And there was different colored lights, and and exciting. Oh my God, it was exciting. And I learned right then and there, this is where I'm going to be okay. It was soothing to me. It was a happy place for me. I liked it. And I learned real quick what you do. Over on this side of the room is a bar. And the guys are all over there, and they're drinking. And they're on the bar stools. And all the gals are over on this side at tables much like this. And we're watching the hymns. And about, 11-ish, 10:30, 11-ish, they start falling off those stools. Now, we on this side had been watching these for quite some time. And you decide which hymn is your hymn. Which hymn is going to take you away from all this? Which hymn is going to put you right here, and I'm going to be okay. This is what we do. And you have to watch the blondes. Blondes have been a thorn in my side forever. Real ones. And there's the last dance. And the last dance is extremely critical. Because you have to place yourself. One of the gals in my home group, the AA group that I go to, the Pacific group, her name's Catherine. And she said something I wish I'd known. I just never thought about it. She said she would place herself in the honky-tonks right in front of the men's restroom. So when the door opened, the light would fall on her. And she'd be ready for them to notice her. I never, ever thought of that. What a great place to put yourself so they'll all see you as they walk out. And at this particular one that I went to all the time, I graduated from the Cotton Club and found, where I really need to go. I hope nobody claims these. And it was called the Bloody Bucket. The Bloody Bucket didn't even open till like 2 a.m. And the real serious people came there. The ones that really were... I met gangsters there. Literally. Thieves, professional thieves, prostitutes. They called them boosters back then. They'd boost something, put it in their... one of these that said, "Here's, you need to watch." And they were incredible places. And the last dance that they played was a song called Sleepwalk. It is instrumental. And what I learned on the dance floor, not unlike last night, there was one slow dance where you could really get a man. Rest of it, you just, dance around, jump, nobody pays any attention to anybody. That's not dancing to me, that's just playing. I'm talking about dancing. And this slow dance is an instrumental, and Sleepwalk is just fabulous. And I discovered dancing that there's something so magical. The human touch. The man holds me. My parents, and like most of us that wind up here, never held me. They never tucked me in. They never, ever, in my lifetime, do I remember, until I said it first, ever said, "I love you." They never said, "You're a great kid, you're going to do well." They didn't say those things because they didn't know to. And I was never touched in my home, except spanking. But in the dance floor, you could be held. And the human touch was the most magical thing I had ever found. And I loved it. And I discovered what you can do to continue the human touch, what you did. And I started giving away little pieces of my soul to be held. And I paid the price. I just became your average slut puppy hoe, just. And you've struggled, you've fought the blondes, you found your him, it's sleepwalked, you've manipulated yourself so he's going to ask you to dance at sleepwalk, and then you get together and you're in the position. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I mean, you're in the position. I saw it last night. Nowadays they do it like this. The girls are all hooked up behind and the guys are back here. But in my day, where's Linus? My man Linus and I danced last night. We did a real dance. And you're locked, aren't you, honey? You're locked. Couldn't put a human hair in between, And I can do sleepwalk even today. I heard a man, an alcoholic, from this podium one time, and he said all of his insecurities, all the things that make up an alcoholic, the fear, the whole crap that you just can't face life and how horrible life is and the resentments and the anger. And he couldn't hold his head up. He couldn't look at people. But he took a drink. And the drink comes down here, and it goes boom, and it comes back up. And he said, oh, man, his muscles got big, and he could just go do anything. When he said that, I knew immediately what he was talking about. Because it's sleepwalk. I've got my him. The one who's going to take me away. The one that's going to make me okay. And we're in the position, And here's sleepwalk. I can do it pretty good. Near, 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 near. Boom! And he's nibbling right here. And he says to me, sugar, I need you. Boom! Yes! I am woman. I can do anything. Let me take you home and I will show you things that you have never known in your life. And you will never leave me. You will never need anything else as long as you live. You will have me, I will have you, and we will walk off into the sunset. And I would do that. I would take him home, his house or my house, whatever was convenient. And the next day, they escaped. They lie. Y'all are liars. And I'm left with what I hear a lot of alcoholics talk about. I'm left with the remorse, the guilt. Why did I do that? I'll guarantee you, this weekend, I'm going to go out to the honky-tonk, but I'm just going to have a couple of dances. Me and Shelley both said we're going to do a couple of dances, and then we're going to bed. She shut the thing down. I surrendered. But I'm just going to go do a couple of dances, and then I'm going to go home. I'm not going to sacrifice myself again. I'm not going to do it. But, I get out there, and that loneliness comes, that insecurity comes, the excitement hits me. I need to be needed. You need me because you're falling off the stool. I can catch you. You can't drive home, honey. I'll drive you home. What do you need? I'll take care of you. And I will pay any price. I will do any consequence for that feeling. I did lose everybody. I lost everybody in my family because of my Al-Anon-isms, and there are many of them. One of them is control. One of them is denial. One of them is addicted to excitement. One of them is martyr, and I could go on. There's several. My first major alcoholic was the gangster out at the Bloody Bucket. And he had, the first night that he came over to my table, he threw a $100 bill down. Now, I had never seen a $100 bill, ever. My folks were broke. I mean, we ate beans and gravy and biscuits a lot. Because my brother, he was always sick. It was always about him, and I just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And to see a $100 bill was awesome. I went and bought clothes that matched, brand new clothes, not my Aunt Claudie's hand-me-downs. And I bought Heaven Sent perfume. Oh, my God. And this man fascinated me, and he was a professional gambler, he was a bootlegger, and he had a lot of money, and he was mean. He was a mean, mean man. He carried a pistol, he carried a blackjack, both of which he used on me. He shot at me. I was running backwards on a cotton field. I don't know if y'all know what a cotton field is, but they're rows. Some of you know. I'm running backwards on that, and he's shooting at me. Thank God he was too drunk to hit me. One night he threw me out of a running car. He's thrown me into cars the doors wasn't open. He's cut off the top of the tip of this ear's gone from a blackjack that he hit me with. Now that sounds like a pure victim, doesn't it? But I'd go at him. I'd try to whoop him. I could never whoop that man. I always had a mouth. I was always in his face. 2 reasons. One, this time he won't hit me because he's seen how bad he's treated me. 2, I'm guilty. Guilty of what I didn't know, but I was guilty. So I allowed that. I hear a lot of alcoholics, just a sidebar here, a lot of alcoholics that can't get over the guilt of what they did do to their families, especially their wives. But the Big Book says that a lot of alcoholics are in full flight from reality. Now, did you hear that? Full flight from reality. Now, if y'all just look around and see who's chasing you out of reality, it's these crazy Al-Anons. We're hanging on to you. Don't leave us. I'll go full flight with you, which I will, and I did. There was no reality in my life. Being beaten up was nothing. It was part of what I needed, and if it didn't happen, and if it got too boring, I'd stir it up. I had a meaningful relationship with him, as they call it today. We called it shacked up. And I became pregnant by him. And I had a little baby girl. And when I was in the hospital with her, before they released me, and he came up and he said, I've taken care of you as much as I'm going to. When you get out, I've got your things boxed up and you need to move somewhere else. Well, now, one of my Al-Anon isms is this. Obviously, you can treat me any way you want to. You can call me anything. You can humiliate me in public. You can beat me up. Don't leave me. Please just don't leave me. If you abandon me, I don't know what I'll do. What will I do if I'm abandoned? Because you see, I'm nothing. If there's not somebody right here, I'm nothing. Don't abandon me. The other ism that I have, and I don't particularly like the word, I kind of like showing you how bad you've hurt me, but the word is vindictive. I like better, let me show you how bad you've hurt me by me doing this. I will punish you for your action, whatever it is. So this punishment for him for abandoning me, and also to make him jealous, so he'd want me back, was go mess around with this other gangster that he absolutely hated. He hated him. I knew if I got with him, took him to the bloody bucket, he would see us together. It'd make him mad. It'd hurt him, and he'd be jealous, and then he'd want me back. So I did all those things. I waited till he got really drunk so I could talk him in to go into the bloody bucket, because he did not want to go over there because it was a dangerous place for him, because these guys had really bad blood. I did that. Got him over there. We stayed for a while, got out. And a couple of days later, the gangster took a shotgun and blew this man's head off. I never, ever expected that would happen, never dreamed that would happen, didn't want that to happen, was totally shocked. It's a small town. They put it on newspapers. They put it in the radio. They put it everywhere. We're cleaning this town up. And here's my little daughter. Her father's a murderer now. Now, my folks were barely speaking to me. And when this happened, my mother said to me, "We don't want you coming in and out of the house. We don't want neighbors seeing you here. And if anybody asks if you're our daughter, please tell them you're not." And what had happened as a result of that, my mother was in the Rebecca Lodge. The only thing she really got to go to because of my brother's illness, it was a little place where she could get out and get away from the stuff for a while. So she went to Rebecca Lodge every week, and they had this big Texas state meeting, and she had been elected a state officer, which was a real thrill and real honor for her. And when they found out what I had done, that I'd been a part of this, they asked her to step down, and it really hurt her deeply. And when she gets hurt or mad, she just puts a line through your name, and you disappear. And I was her daughter, and I disappeared. And I told her, I said, "Okay, Mama." I understood what she was saying. I was a shame to them. And I said, "Of course." And I decided right then and there, I have got to do something with my life. I've got to change this. I've got to get out of the bloody bucket and those gangsters and those people. I knew about a God because my grandmother kept saying it all the time. But her family did not speak to her for many years. 2 reasons. Number one, because she got a divorce. And number two, she left the Church of Christ and joined Southern Baptist. And you just don't do that. And so they didn't speak to her because she went to the Baptist folks. So that made no sense to me. And one time there's a bunch of people came and they lifted, there's like 8 or 10 men lifted my brother, his mattress, and put him on the floor. And all these people got around him. And they were all on their knees and they were screaming and yelling. And they had their hands up and they were doing this and screaming and talking in languages I didn't understand. And I was scared. And when they came in, they brought a bunch of groceries. And my daddy, he went out in the backyard. His face turned kind of gray. And my mother started crying. And I just didn't like these people. And I was scared what they were doing to my brother. And they finally left. And it was all about Jesus and God. And when they left, I went in and said, "If my brother's okay." And you have to remember, I'm a little kid, like 6, 7. And he said to me, "These people just prayed over me, and God's going to heal me. And the first thing I'm going to do is chase you around the backyard." Well, I was thrilled at that. So I went in the living room, sat on the couch, and waited. And he's a paraplegic. He's not going to get up and do anything. I need to say, he was healed. He just didn't walk. I need to say that today I am one of those that scream and yell and believe in Jesus. My sponsor reminds me to say that, but at the time I certainly didn't. So I'm saying, what am I going to do? What am I going to do different? I did not believe in God. I did not believe in anything. I've got to change my life. This is too miserable. This little baby, what am I going to do? Well, I decided. It was in the era that you were talking about last night, Bill. You know, people were partying down. They were tearing up the draft cards. They were burning the flag. You know, they were just rowdy. Except the Cowboys. The Cowboys still wore their white hats. They still had their draft cards. They were all American red-blooded men. You understand, from Texas. So that's what I'll do. I'll go to the rodeo grounds, and so I did. If I could get a cowboy right here, then I'd be different. So I went to the rodeo grounds and watched them. I watched this bull rider. God, he was sexy and wore those tight jeans. I mean, tell you, tight jeans just kill me today. I mean, God. He wore a white hat, and he rode the biggest, baddest bulls, and he won them all. He won every contest on those big old bad boys. And then they'd go to the side of the rodeo arena, and there'd be a slab, and there'd be a fence around it, and down at this end would be the band. And all the cowboys lean up against this fence, and all the cowgirls lean up against this fence, and we watch them to about 10 or 11-ish, and then they start staggering away from the fence, and they come on to the dance floor. We grab them, we play sleepwalk. I'm off and running. So I got this bull rider. And one night he was really drunk, and he was poking me in the chest. There was an empty quart brown beer bottle. I picked it up, I busted him upside the head, fell to his knees. I started running to my car because I figured he's going to get up and come after me. I expected him to. He caught me, spun me around. He said, "I think you've just knocked some sense into me. I think we should get married." Now, let me tell you, that boy did not get sober for the next 3 days. I saw to it till we got the marriage license and we got married. Do you hear what I just said? Married. A slut puppy like me, a piece of garbage that I had become. Decent people did not want to be around me. My folks, everybody stayed away from me. And here I am, I'm married. Now, we are going to do certain things. We're going to the PTA. He's going to mow the yard. I'm going to bake cookies. And I'll make some kitchen curtains like my friend does. And we're going to be happy. This is it. My dream. Oh, my God. I watched Doris Day and Rock Hudson. And I watched her do orange juice and make, things. And this is it. My dream has come true. I'm going to be all right. And I was for the first 6 days. And then he went out with Charlie. And they got drunk. And the whole thing started over again. And I'm sitting there thinking, we didn't have a yard. There's no grass. I don't know how to bake. I don't know how to, do kitchen curtains. What was I thinking? And I'm standing there at the window. Rhonda said it so great yesterday. I'm standing at the window. It's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'm looking down this street and down this way, this street. All the other lights are out. All trucks are home. It's quiet. You can hear the night birds singing. And I'm looking. And I'm listening for that truck. They have a tick, tick, tick or a ding, ding, ding that I could hear the truck 4 blocks away. And I would watch and I'd wait and I'd look for it. And the minute he'd pull up, I'd run, jump in the bed and cling to the side of the bed, hoping he'd just come in and go to sleep. For God's sakes, just come in and go to sleep. Because by now I have a son. We have 2 kids. They're in the room. And I just want him to come in and go to sleep. Don't come in screaming. Don't come in starting a fight. Let's don't wake up the neighbors tonight. Let's just go. Let's just go to sleep. Let's just be quiet. My dreams are gone. My dreams are gone. And when you're without dreams, when you're without hopes, all you want is it just to be quiet. Just, God, let it be quiet. Sometimes he'd come in and sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes the house would wake up. I was sitting on a Thursday afternoon. He had been working out of town. He was going to come in the next day. I had 2 black eyes and a busted lip, and I could not do it anymore. The neighbors kept their kids away from my kids. I kept my kids in the back room, shut the door so they wouldn't know what was happening. So they'd be quiet and they wouldn't know a thing. They didn't know what was going on. They were more afraid of me than they were him. They pretty well knew how he was going to act. If he smelled one way, he'd act one way. If he smelled another way, he'd act another. They never knew how I was going to act. They never knew when I was going to charge them. They never knew when I was going to reach up and just knock them to tomorrow. They never knew when they was going to have food or when they wasn't going to have food. They never knew when I was going to go into a rage. This Thursday, I couldn't do it anymore. I was done. If I could have, I would have committed suicide. I thought about it. But I thought, there's absolutely nobody on this earth to take these 2 kids. What am I going to do? I remembered reading in Ann Landers a letter a lady wrote in about a drunk husband, and Ann Landers said, try AA. That's what I remember. I called AA. I looked up in the Yellow Pages, called them. They sent me over to this house. I talked to this woman and this man. The thing I remember the most is going, she invited me in. We walked through the living room, the kitchen, to a den. And I remember looking at her kitchen. The sink was clean. There was no dishes on the table. It was spotless. And I thought, I wonder where all her dishes are. That was my thought. Because at my house, if you need a dish, you just need to scratch on the top and find one and rinse it off. And I didn't clean the house. I didn't do anything. My kids, they ate what they could find. I was just in this stupor. And I talked with them, and they talked about alcoholism, and they talked about, both of them were sober alcoholics. They took me my first meeting. And I never will forget it. It's just one of those things that's, your first meeting. Number one thing, he opened the door to the clubhouse. And he opened the door and kind of stood like this and looked at me. And I thought, I wonder what he's doing. I'd never encountered a gentleman before in my whole life. Seen him on the movies. I'd never encountered one, and it dawned on me, oh my God, he's holding the door open for me. I was just, and so I walked in a little embarrassed, and there was a long coffee room, and in the back there was an old-timey cigarette machine that you put this smoker's a quarter. And it would have the little advertisement, the front part of the cigarette pack would be up there, and there's all different colors, and you put a quarter in and pull, and it'd slide in. There was 2 rows, and they were all different colors. So the glow on these 2 guys' faces, they were leaning up against this machine, and they were laughing. Now, when I say laughing, I'm talking about laughter that we hear here. I call it the music of AA. That laughter, that joy. And I had not heard it in so long, and it was such a foreign thing to me that I stopped in the door and I was watching them. And he had to kind of poke me to get me to move on in. And I was amazed at what I was seeing. Went in that night and sat in that meeting, and I can't tell you a thing was said. Not a thing. I remember looking around and seeing these people and watching them and the feeling that was in the room. There's a book called The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran, and there's a line in there that I think describes what happened to me, and it is, say not that God is in your heart, but that you are in the heart of God. And I think that's what happened to me. I walked into the heart of God. I sat there. I'd come in as soon as it was over. Right before it started, as soon as it was over, I was out of there for a couple of months. And one night, they had 2 doors, and they were watching me. I didn't know they knew I was new. I sat on the back row and right by the door so I could escape. And this night, one lady got at this door and one got at this door, so they would catch me before I escaped. They had decided. And I chose this door, and I ran to this woman, and she was standing there talking to me. And she said some things only she could say that only I could hear. I know today it was a divine appointment. I know that. And she became my sponsor, the one that sponsored me all these years. And it's been an amazing adventure from that day to this. It's been so amazing. There is not enough time to tell you everything, and I always get so frustrated at this point. But so what do I tell you? Where do I go? How do I tell you? How do I tell y'all what my life is like today? How do I thank y'all? How do I get it? How do I get it out there? I never know. She bought me a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. She said, we're gonna read this so that you'll know that you are dealing with a disease. And so we did. We read the first few chapters, and we looked at it, and I read it, and I would read it, and I would read it. And I read it all about him, all about him, all about him. And eventually went back and put it all about me. Where it says drinking, we put a little pencil line in it and put control. And that's the umbrella of my Al-Anonism is control. And so that's how I read that book. And she started me through the steps. She said, as Bill said last night, get in the car. I got in the car and I went to conferences like this. I heard people talk from the podium. I sat at tables like this with y'all. I felt the spirit that goes on here. And little by little, I started changing. I went through those steps. I took a fifth step, which I thought I would absolutely die. And she still liked me. She still, I can't tell you what my sponsor means to me. She was the first human being that ever said to me, Vannoy, I love you, and I knew she meant it. How I knew that, I don't know. How I believed everything she said, I don't know. I want her approval still today more than anybody that I know. I will still do everything she asked me today. I never want her to say, did you do so-and-so? And I say, no, not yet. I don't think I've ever done that. And she led me through these steps. She led me to introduce me to this God of my understanding through these 12 steps. And she taught me how to do things. And my life started changing little by little. This cowboy, he knew, this just tickles me to death. He knew I was going down there. Down there. You got that. Down there. He hired a private detective to watch me. Now, he's gone for days and days and days. I go off 3 nights, and you can tell exactly when I leave and exactly when I come back. And he hired a private detective to watch me. I think that's the biggest kick. He came in and got sober after I'd been here for a year, for 6 months. And then he discovered it wasn't really for him. He was not really an alcoholic. And he went back out and he drank for 26 more years. I stayed with him for 7 years while he was still drinking. I was in and out of those last few years. And because I could not leave him. People would say to me, what are you doing? Why are you staying with him? And I would say, don't worry, I'm going to leave him as soon as the kids got out of school, as soon as I got some money, as soon as the car got paid off, as soon as. Now, I can't tell you why I wouldn't leave. It's the same principle as an alcoholic cannot tell you why they can't stop drinking. I don't know. I just know I couldn't leave. My disease was so hooked into his that it took me a long time to get to the point where I could do that. After 7 years, and I must say this, when I first came in, one of the AA members came up to me and he said, if you'll keep your mouth shut, that violence will probably stop. What a concept. And so by me keeping my mouth shut and a lot of prayers and things, the violence stopped. 7 years after I'd been coming, he came in one night and he started beating me up. First time in 7 years. And I fell over the foot of the bed and I was all tangled up in the sheets. And I looked up and there was my 2 kids standing in the door just dancing and screaming, Daddy, please don't hit her anymore. Please don't hit her anymore. And I looked up and saw their faces. I saw their faces. The terror, the just horror was in their face, that screaming. And it was like that blanket came down. You can't see, said Elsa Chamberlain. You can't see till you can see, and you cannot hear till you can hear. And I saw my children's faces. I heard their cries. I heard the tone of their voice. And I thought, my God, they know about this horrible mess. I mean, it had never occurred to me. I thought if they were in their room, the door is shut, they didn't know. Now, how stupid can an adult human being be? And we escaped. Now, I'm a high school dropout. I had no education. I had no way to take care of these children. That's the one reason I stayed hooked into that marriage. And immediately, when you're ready, God opens the heavens and it just comes to you. I got into school, nursing school. I never thought about it being a nurse ever. My sponsor was a nurse, and she said, why do you think about that? Most Al-Anons are nurses or teachers. And I had no money to get to school. I had no way to go to school and support myself. I mean, things just came to me. Next thing I knew, I was in school. I had all this time been working my steps. I had been learning how to do things and make my life different and better. And I've been forgiven, and things were just... When I graduated from nursing school, my class asked me to give the class presentation. And it was in a church, and there was about 400 or 500 people there. And this whole front section to the left here was my AA family. My sponsor flew in she had abandoned me, moved to Austin by this time, and she had surprised me. She was there, and right in the middle of them, I was thanking our friends and family for supporting us, because it was an intense time. And I was thanking my families, and I looked down, and there sat my mama and my daddy. And my daddy was punching the next door neighbor that they invited. Some of those Rebeccas were there. And the only thing that had happened is that you told me how to go to their house and say, "Will you forgive me?" You told me how to show up over there when they didn't want me. You told me how to go over there every Sunday after church that I started going back to and just pop in and say, "Did you have a good week? Here's a rose." Or, "Did you have a good week? Here's some plants. I know you like taters." And that's all you taught me to do. And little by little, I was forgiven. Everybody forgave me but this one brother. He never forgave me. And he wouldn't speak to me. He had 2 children. He wouldn't have those children speak to me. And I was discovered why many years later. He's an alcoholic. And in his drunkenness, he took a gun and killed himself. Too late for him to see, and I know he sees it now, but for him to see his 2 children get sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, both of them are, because I was an example. I divorced this cowboy. My kids grew up. I was self-supporting, which I absolutely loved. My daughter started, they say, and I've heard it said this weekend, you can't say another person's an alcoholic. They have to say it. I also heard a speaker say, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, waddles like a duck, chances are it's a duck. And my daughter was waddling and quacking at 16. And I hated her, and she hated me. When there's alcoholism and you're a parent, it's a whole new ball game. I can walk off from that husband. I can divorce that husband. I can release him. But you see, this is my children. We're talking about my children. I can't let this happen. And the pain that goes along with that is unspeakable. I heard you women talk behind this podium. I knew where you'd been. I heard your pain. I heard all the stuff you went through. I didn't want my daughter to go there. So I began to try to stop that. Have you ever tried to ground a teenage alcoholic in their room? They go through the walls. I mean, she would just evaporate. I kicked her out. And while she was out, some terrible things happened to her, of course. One of them is the family we refer to as the lie. She told me that she had been drunk and passed out in a car, and 2 men raped her. And I had to live with that for many years. My son, his drunk daddy came, got him one night, and brought him back the next day. My son was crying. His daddy had fed him alcohol, and it got him drunk, and it made him really sick, and he didn't want, he was just terrified. And I called some people, and they helped me, and we were going to put him in a boys' ranch, and his daddy found out about it and came, kidnapped him when I was gone, and I didn't see him for almost a week, and the sheriff was looking for him. It was terrible. And then my son called me and said, I'm going to stay with my dad. I'm going to live with him. I'm okay. And hung up. My daughter was gone, and my son did this, and I'm thinking, those ingrates, after all I had done for them. And I had to go to my sponsor. I was just devastated. And she told me to write a inventory on my motherhood, which I did. I read it to her. And in the inventory, I saw where I was really a bad mother. I was. My illness made me a bad mother in a lot of areas. I also saw where I was a really good mother in a lot of areas. I also saw what I was dealing with was the disease of alcoholism, the disease of Al-Anism. And I could forgive myself. I took my children to prayer and meditation. I gave them to God in that prayer and meditation, and as one day at a time as I possibly could, I turned them over to them, and I'm still doing it to this very day. My kids are gone. I'm divorced. I'm in AA. I'm single. I'm having a great time now. It's good. They're doing whatever they're doing. I meet this sober alcoholic from California. Big blue eyes, big man. Had just the right kind of streaks in his hair to make him look distinguished. And he had a lot of diamonds. And all of that caught my attention. And we started dating. And long distance dating. We were just about, I had quit my job, I'd loaded up everything in my U-Haul trailer. A guy was going to drive me out to California. He was going to rent me a place. We were going to do some dating so we could see if we could have a relationship. And I flew off to talk at a convention and tell everybody how wonderful it was, how good God was, and I'd done all the right things, and look at me, I'm going off to Mecca. And I came back, and he met me at the airport in Lubbock. He'd been on a cruise, and he'd landed in Florida. He was flying back to California. I was flying to Lubbock, getting the car, and I was going to California the next day. But here I am. There he is. I thought, he came to drive me back himself. He came back to dump me, which he did. He said, I can't go through this. And left. He gave me a lot of money to put everything back. He wanted me to always tell that. So I'll tell it. But let me tell you, I was more than devastated. I was pissed. I wasn't pissed at him. It was at God. I'd done everything you'd asked me to. I'd picked up the chairs, I'd picked up the coffee cups, I'd come down here at these conventions and do crap, and I've been your GR and your DR. I'd done everything. Where was mine? Everybody else got up behind this podium and said, I got sober, and the little lady got her new Cadillac today and got my old business back. I'm the president now. My kid is, he's the football hero, and the daughter's a cheerleader, and we're great. I think, screw you. And I was so angry with God that I tell you, I'm vindictive. I wish I didn't have to tell this. I really and truly wish I could skip this part so y'all would think my sponsor makes me tell it. What I did was look around the AA meeting. I was sitting in the meeting with this lie in my stomach because I hated every one of you. Every one of you I hated. And I hated you couples, and I hated somebody like this one. She's got that one. And he just looks at her just, I'm sure they're in a meaningful relationship, I just hated you. There was some newcomer alcoholic men, 2 in particular, and I went after them. I went after them. And I had old behavior, shameful old behavior. Just, screw everything. And I was at a conference. I had to go. I had to play like everything's all right. And I'm lying to my sponsor. I'm lying to sponsorees. I'm lying to everybody. And I hate you. And I go to this conference, and one of them snitches to my sponsor about the other because he was a AA dropout. And he told my sponsor. Oh, I was appalled. And she got me, and she pulled me over, and can you imagine somebody getting a potato peeler and peeling your skin off? That's how I felt. She was taking my skin off, and she made me go talk to Jack. Now, that was worse than any fate I could think of. And I sat there and I said, Pat, God's betrayed me. I did everything. I've done everything. Look what's happened. This dream. I mean, she said, do you think you've ever betrayed God? And then I just started crying. And I said, Pat, there's just something about me you don't know. I've never told anybody. I've been afraid to tell anybody. But it's the truth, and I might as well tell you because this is why it happens. I don't know why, but I'm unlovable. I truly am an unlovable person. My mama never has loved me, not really. My kids, they left me. They don't love me. My friends stay around and they go and they come and go, and men have come and go. I'm unlovable, and I'd give anything in this world if that wasn't true. But deep in my heart and deep in my secret place, I know I'm unlovable, and I don't know what to do about it. And she looked at me, and we were sitting on this blanket, and it was night, and she pulled me over, and she said, oh, Vannoy, that's not true. And she put my head on her shoulder, and she put me around. She started patting my head and rubbing my hair, and she said, I love you. I love you just the way you are. And if I can do that with my physical love, knowing everything you've done, how do you think God loves you? And I heard her. You know how you hear it? And I sobbed, and I sobbed, and I sobbed. And it was like I was scrubbed with an SOS pad. And I got up from there, and I left there, and I was going back home, and I said, God, if you'll just let me go back in to my group, if you'll just let me go back in and take out the trash, it will be my privilege. And if those people who really know what's going on and they hate me, want me to leave, if you can just give them a little patience and tolerance of me, I will try to make it up to them too. I've hurt my group. I've hurt my fellowship. If you just let me go back and just do, and whatever has been asked of me since that time to this time, I just say, okay. I don't care what it is. Okay. You want me to sponsor? Okay. You want me to take out the trash? Okay. You want me to make coffee? Okay. Whatever y'all need, it's okay. And I came back, and Jim come back into my life, the one who dumped me. And this time I caught that bugger. And we got married, and we eventually moved back to California. He had 2 kids, Sheila and Jim Jr. Many of you know Sheila. Sheila's mother died drunk. She never knew her mother. She met her twice in her life. I became her spiritual mother. She is my child. Jim Jr., we're trying to learn how to be mother, daughter, a son. I mean, he's really trying, struggling. Jim and I put a life together. It was great. My daughter got sober by the grace of God. She had 10 years. When she was brand new sober, she met a campus guy. They got pregnant. They got married. They got divorced. And Jim and I got them. Sheila got pregnant, unmarried. We got them. So Jim and I were able to raise 2 grandkids for a while. And it was like, thank you, God. He gave us a second chance. My big, huge alcoholic husband was going down to school with the little pumpkins. And, he's one of the bad boys out of jail, prison. Where's Kurt? And he was doing little pumpkin things. God, don't you just love it? My daughter had 10 years. She got drunk. She just got drunk. And she was doing seemingly all the things, but she got drunk. She got sober again. She met this young man. We went back to Lubbock for Christmas, and she met this kid. I'd known him all his life. And we just messed around for a while. And then a couple of months later, she called me, and she said, are you sitting down? I said, yeah, why? And she said, I just got married. Well, I said, to who? I didn't know she'd been dating her, so she told me this kid. She was living in Phoenix at the time, and I said, well, are you going to stay in Phoenix, or are you all going back to Texas where he is? What are you going to do? She said, well, we're going to go back to Texas. We've got to get back before his parole officer finds that he's out of state. I saw the handwriting on the wall. She had 2.5 years. I knew what it was going to be. And sure enough, shortly thereafter, she did get drunk. This young man was drunk driving his truck in Dallas and had a wreck, and he's a vegetable today. And today my daughter is 7 years sober. She's back in Phoenix. The light's on in her eyes. My son tried AA, but he's not really an alcoholic. I was just able to go back a couple of weeks ago and stand with him when he had back surgery. He wanted me there. one of those living amends. I was able to take care of my son. He called me, Mom, I'm having trouble. I don't know what to do. And I was able to tell him. He called me a few years ago, and he said the cowboy daddy fell into a machine and cut his arm. He was just nearly dying in the hospital. And he said, nobody will take care of him. I don't know what to do. And I said, I do. And I went to Jim, and he gave Tracy, my daughter, a ticket. She went back. She 12-stepped that cowboy, and he got 4.5 years of sobriety. And he died. He had a stroke. He died before he made amends to me. And my 2 kids buried him. The AAs came, and me and my 2 kids buried their daddy. It was the first time we'd all been together in 20-something years. It was great. I was forgiven by my whole family, except this brother. And my Sheila got sober. She's sober. She's gorgeous. She's beautiful. Jimmy's 5 years sober now, almost. It's just so good. I can't believe it. I give and have given on a daily basis the most precious thing in my life, regardless of anything, my children. I give them to you. And y'all have taken care of them. God, how do I say thank you for that? How do I do that? If you give me your kids, I got your back. Give me your kids. Because you trust them with me. I've given you the most precious things I have. Whatever you need, okay. There was a man in Texas that was one of my mentors. His name was Bob White. God, Rhonda, he was sexy. Big old tall guy. We like the sexy guys. Tall, gray-headed. Oh, God, he was great. One of the most fabulous men I ever met. He had cancer, and I was able to take care of him while he was dying. Because of my nursing skills, I was able to take care of my dad, my stepdad, my mom. I was able to take care of all of them when they was dying. When my mom was dying, the Rebeccas were at that hospital giving us food, saying, what do you need, Vannoy? The ones that kicked her out. Bob was dying. I was helped take care of him. He told this story at a place called the Canyon Conference, a place that Jim and I started many years ago. And he was a Sunday morning speaker, the very first one. And he said this. He was saying to the people, we always say the Lord's Prayer when we close our meetings. He said, today I ask you to listen to the words and say it. It says, our Father. And there's a line in there, this is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. If there's a king, and it starts with our Father, that makes you and I children of the King. We're king's kids. That makes us a prince and a princess. We are royalty. Treat each other like royalty. Treat and act like you're royalty. And the power is in these rooms. Whether we feel it or not, we get it. I always feel it. I always feel it. Sometimes real strong and sometimes not so strong. But the whisper and the music of AA is always here. Always. And the glory is God Almighty. And he said, today, claim your heritage. And as he was saying that, I thought, that's right. I'm going to do that. I'm claiming my heritage. I am Princess Vannoy. I'm a child of the King. That's my heritage. And that's what y'all have given me. God, I thank you so much for my heritage and for letting me share. Thank you.